Coming up, 10 superb exhibition quality model rail layouts to inspire and entertain you. I'm Andrew Gebbie from the Heritage and Model Rail channel. Join me as I visit the Festival of British Railway Modelling held in Doncaster over the 8th and 9th of February in 2020. This N-gauge layout is Fredstone Lane, exhibited by the Alsager Railway Association. Fredstone Lane is a fictitious layout. The track layout comprises inner and outer circuits at different levels, with crossovers and reversing loops, with separate double tracks for passenger and freight. At one end of the layout, maintenance and freight marshalling yards offer shunting opportunities. The focal point at the other end of the layout is a live running water feature, much loved by visitors. The layout is at a height suitable for wheelchair users. Stations and sidings at different heights enable local stopping trains to be passed by express passenger and goods trains. The principal track of the layout is modern image with overhead catenaries, while the outer circuit is a dedicated heritage line allowing historic and preserved trains to run, including steam haul. The emphasis is on entertaining exhibition visitors rather than rivet counters, and so a liberal approach to a constant supply of stable and visiting trains from different regions and eras is encouraged. Behind the scenic section is a storage cum fiddle yard which enables the potential of N-scale to be realised by accommodating full-length, high-speed Pendolino and goods trains. This 00 gauge layout is Campea Colliery, exhibited by John Cook. The layout represents a typical County Durham colliery and railway system in the early 1960s. Buildings are from various Lambourne, Hetton and Joycey collieries, with the exception of the Upcast shaft, which is based on South Hetton Colliery. Buildings have different ages but reflect what a colliery system would look like in National Coal Board days. And the housing, shops etc. are also based on a colliery village of the period. Kepier Colliery was situated at Gilesgate Moor, Durham City, and was sunk in 1818 to 1822. It closed in the 1880s and was totally demolished. As I lived in the vicinity, I have called the layout Kepier Colliery, projected it as still operational and part of a larger colliery group, like LH&J Collieries, which existed into NCB ownership. It would have been part of the National Coal Board Durham Division, Area Number 5, Midwest Durham. This N-gauge model is Todmorden Midland, exhibited by the Macclesfield Model Railway Group. Todmorden Midland is an ex-Midland Railway terminus, 48 inches by 14 inches, with a 2-foot cassette fiddle yard. This is small even for N-gauge, but the scenic section includes station, goods shed, coal yard, loco shed, canal scene, a couple of West Yorkshire mills, a pub and distant views of hills. Motive power is ex-Midland Railway and LMS, along with some standards, some visiting ex-LNER locos on summer holiday trains, and even 1 or 2 diesels and DMUs. Track is Pico with SEEP operated points. Control is analogue via an excellent controller designed and built by WMRC members. Stock is by Farish, Dapol, Pico, N-Gauge Society, Union Mills and some kit-built items. Scenery uses various products including the excellent and rare Graham Avis trees. Buildings are mainly scratch built with a couple of modified kits. Pico N-Gauge stone building sheets have proved very effective. However, the church is made from 00 will sheet. Some buildings are scratch-built Settle and Carlisle designs, which are justified by the line's presumed historic origins. Mill buildings and pub are scratch-built, based on the types of building found in the area. This 00 gauge layout is No Place, exhibited by Les Richardson. Set in the northwest of County Durham, No Place Disposal Point was built by the Ministry of Fuel and Power in 1942 on the site of the East Stanley Colliery. The screens were linked to the Beamish Railway near Beamish Station. A wagon repair shop was opened on the site, later taken over as a preservation shed by a group of Durham University Railway Society members. The whole site closed in the late 80s and was levelled. The preserved locos moving on to other locations. This, of course, isn't the real history of the East Stanley site after the closure, but it makes a might have been that fits the size of layout I wanted to build. Modelled sometime between 1970 and 1975, the layout is DCC controlled using NCE cabs with magnetically modified tension lock couplers to allow some shunting of the screens. There is a vintage passenger train which appears from time to time. No Place is a real place near Beamish. The original village of No Place has disappeared, but the name lives on, allied to the next door village of Cooperative Villas. This S-gauge layout is Lydham Heath, exhibited by Simon Dunkley. This layout was built to the rare but historic S scale by scenic maestro Barry Norman. After a period on display in a museum and then in store, it has been likely rejuvenated and taken back out on the road. As well as being built to a rare scale, it is an authentic portrayal of a truly independent minor railway built before the advent of light railways and the birth of Colonel Stevens. Spending nearly its entire history in receivership, neither the LMS nor the GWR wanted it as part of the Grouping Act, and it tottered on until finally giving up the ghost in 1935. The layout depicts the scene as it was during its twilight years in the early 1930s, a period when the reliability of stock was so bad that they frequently ran a bus instead. With a limited stock requirement, the prototype is an ideal subject for scratch building in S, although few other items may also appear from time to time. This EM gauge layout is Bawdsey, exhibited by Alan Rollis and Chris Wright. This is Bawdsey, a small village in Essex which has no rail connection. With a rail connection, many places experienced an increase in population, so this Bawdsey is substantially larger than the real Bawdsey. What did exist in the area from 1936 until the 1990s was RAF Bawdsey, an establishment important in the development of radar and much developed in this period because of the Cold War. So we have an excuse for a small branch running from Bawdsey to Bawdsey Quay on the River Debden and the RAF station, hence fulfilling the modeller's idea of what might have been. Plain track work is C&L plastic sleepered. Point work is handmade using EM Gauge Society plywood sleepers and copper rivets, with C&L plastic chairs stuck on afterwards. Ballasting is Slater's limestone chippings or silver sand. Buildings are cardboard covered with super quick yellow brick and grey slate papers. DG automatic couplings are fitted where necessary to take advantage of electromagnets at strategic positions as originally installed. Everything is too small, too short or too close together, but we make no apologies for this. After all, this is a model railway and not a model of a railway. There is also the consideration that when it is erected it has to fit in a room in the house and for transport to shows fit in the car. This 00 gauge layout is Canons Cross, exhibited by Market Deeping Model Railway Club. The layout has been built for BRM to show that a model railway is within the capabilities of anyone who has carried out DIY and those with skill at beginner's stage. All items can be bought off the shelf from local model shops and builders' merchants that sell timber. Some buildings are made from simple card kits that are pre-cut and very easily assembled. Woodwork on the baseboards is simple and has no complicated joints. Some builders' merchants will part cut some of the plywood. Electrics are simple and sturdy, requiring little soldering. Rolling stock used is all ready to run. A series of articles regarding its construction has appeared in the magazine BRM. The layout is based in the southern region of British Railways in the 1950s and 60s and operates with steam, diesel and electric multiple units. It is a small terminus to fiddle yard layout. Since its original concept, the layout has had 2 further extensions, the most recent in 2018. This EM gauge layout is Broom Junction, exhibited by Charles Stevens and Shrewley Modellers. Broom Junction is one of the few stations that existed merely to allow passengers to change trains. The station has limited road access, and being situated in a small Warwickshire village, little local traffic was generated. Instead, it played a major role in the interchange between the north-south line between Birmingham and Ashchurch of the Midland Railway and the east-west line of the Midland and Stratford-upon-Avon joint line. It also played an important part in the exchange of long-distance freight traffic, which used these backwater lines to avoid clogging up some of the major routes. Until 1942, when a new spur was opened, the junction faced north, so that all freight trains from SMUR heading south had to reverse at Broom. The new spur missed the station completely, and all southbound trains were capable of continuing without stopping. The model represents the situation in the mid-30s, before the spur was built. This 009 gauge layout is Wantage narrow gauge tramway, exhibited by Richard Holder. The Wantage tramway was a standard gauge railway that linked the market town of Wantage to the GWR main line. This little layout is Richard's interpretation of what the terminus at Wantage might have looked like had the tramway been built as a 2'3" narrow gauge line. It is not an accurate scale model, but Richard hopes that it does give an impression of the area in the 1920s. The original tramway ceased to carry passengers in 1925 and completely closed in 1945. The railway buildings are accurate models of the originals, apart from window sizes and styles. Some of the other buildings have also been scratch built using card and plastic. Use has also been made of models from the Hornby Scaledale and Bachmann Scenecraft ranges. The 2 main tram locos and tramcars have been built using Worsley Works brass etches. The models run on a Cato N-gauge chassis. Wantage Tramway Loco No. 7 is represented by an RT Models standard gauge kit running on an adapted Graham Farish 08 diesel chassis with adapted detail. Other rolling stock has been constructed by adapting plastic kits of various prototypes from Great Britain and Ireland. This 00 gauge 4mm scale layout is Overlord, exhibited by Chris Mead. As with the Great War some 30 years previously, the railways also played a key role in World War II, transporting people and material throughout the country, dispersing the returning troops rescued from Dunkirk, evacuating children from the London Blitz, and moving the men and material from their depots and assembly areas to the embarkation points for the D-Day landings of June 1944, codenamed Overlord, from which the layout gets its name. Based loosely on Southampton and Portsmouth dockyards, the layout attempts to depict the hectic quayside activities to be found at many of the southern ports of England in the days surrounding the invasion of Normandy. Much of the variety and confusion of the moment are displayed. Tanks await loading. Mechanised infantry columns search for their embarkation point. There are specialist vehicles such as bridge layers, rocket launchers, mine clearers and amphibious tanks needed to ensure the success of the landings. Landing ships of various sizes, together with the vital support of escorting destroyers, launches and torpedo boats, prepare to put to sea. Overhead, gliders make their way south, watched over by the wafts on the anti-aircraft guns and barrage balloon. And finally, there are tea ladies of the NAFI, providing a continuous supply of drinks to the nervous troops. Although the layout has been exhibited for a number of years, we are still adding to it. For those who may have seen it before, new at this time are sections of the Mulberry Harbour, the floating port towed across the channel, and Pluto, the underwater fuel pipeline which powered the Allied advance from the hard-won beachhead through France, Belgium, Holland and ultimately over the Rhine. To watch more videos like this, click on the playlist and I'll see you there.